Hello, my name is Harry, and I am here with Henry Fadipe for SevereMMA. Henry, how's it going, sir?
Oh, good man, how are you?
Good, mate. Good. I am good. Firstly, I want to congratulate you on a purple belt. That's a fantastic achievement. You said in your Instagram post that you were a blue belt for 9 years, which seems insane to me. How did you manage to stay blue belt for 9 years? How did that?
I wasn't training in the kimono. Like I was just doing no-gi for 9 years. So I did a gi like now and then, but I wasn't focused on it, and I never went anywhere anything like that. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised they didn't just give you the belt. Do you know what I mean?
that's practically what they did there. Was it yesterday? Day before yesterday.
Yeah, and obviously, no-gi grappling is where you're going to be the most proficient, right? The gi is obviously not a tool that you can use in MMA.
Exactly.
Do you enjoy training in the gi?
Yeah, it's a totally different sport though. It's not like MMA grappling. It's totally like there are a million things to hold on to that aren't there in MMA, So
And do you think? I mean, the comparisons are probably relatively obvious, but like, do you find that you can have more uh, creativity with the gi, given that you can hold on to a variety of
yeah,
different?
yeah, you have a lot more options with the gi. A
Yeah,
lot. So
for
many more attacks, many more defenses.
100%. So we'll jump into sort of your recent fighting career. I'm going to ask some questions about where you've been, the breaks, the times off, who you are as a fighter, these sorts of things. So we'll start with Johnny Jitsu a couple of weekends ago. Before then, 6 days earlier or 7 days earlier, you had a fight. Talk me through taking 2 fights in a week.
So I hadn't been fighting for a while because I had issues with my travel documents, and I got that sorted in September. And literally 2 weeks after we got it sorted, we got the fight in Poland. We had the fight in Poland, and I took that. I was on my way back from Poland. I was at the airport, and I heard about Richard Kiley getting injured, and I thought, you know what, might as well give it another go because I'd fought Johnny twice already at this time. So I put it up on my story, I think. And I know Johnny's one of those kind of guys, like I fight anybody anyway kind of thing. So I knew I kind of had a feeling this would go, that would happen. And it's 3 days later he took the fight just on a Wednesday, and I had literally 2 days to cut weight for the next fight for his fight. But yeah, we got it done. It all worked out.
It seems mental to me, right? So you have the difficulties with your passport documents and travel documents and everything else. You then
Yeah.
fly internationally, cut weight, compete, come back, have a fight turnaround in 3 days, cut weight in 2 days. And then, okay, look, I know that you've competed against Johnny twice already. This was the third time. It was already 2-0. You've made it 3-0. But to transition your brain from being in a fight 6 days ago to then the release and the sort of
Yeah.
endorphins and the reflections that come from having a fight to then go straight back into another one. That's
Yeah.
me.
And the thing is, after the fight in Poland, we kind of had a weekend, so they had that as well. I had to recover from the weekend and then straight into cutting weight for another fight. Yeah, it was difficult, but
I was
mind
going
over
to
matter.
until the very end, but I'm going to ask about weight cutting now. Obviously, you've competed at both welterweight and at middleweight, and we'll talk about the
Yeah.
title in the EFC a little bit later. In terms of cutting weight, what's your opinion on cutting weight, both as a man outside of the sport, but also as an athlete inside the sport?
It depends. As a professional, the thing is now just cutting weight is like I fight middleweight, I fight welterweight. I walk around at 87. That's my usual walk around. So cutting out to 84 isn't really a weight cut. It's more dieting than anything else. 77 is a cut. And the guys that fight at middleweight, like they come down from nearly 100 kilos, so that's weight cut. As a professional, if you have to do it, you have to do it. Can't
But as,
can't complain.
but as a man,
I think it's rubbish, man. You see. What was it, one championship? You see the system they have over there. Yeah, I think that makes more sense. But it is a sport. It is what it is. It is what it is. Like let me know that's like wrestling, weight cut, and all that. So I don't think something like that's gonna change anytime soon.
I agree. I mean, I think the thing that will force change will be something catastrophic and tragic to happen
Yeah.
inside the UFC
But
or
I'm
in.
sure that happened. That's happened already. Like all that, like weight cutting and passing out and all that. That's all happened. But I don't see it changing anything really.
Yeah, I mean, weight cutting to me personally, just as a both as a fan and as a media member, is something that I would love to make an impact on, because I think
Yeah.
having done a couple of weight cuts in my own competitive career, they're not fun, you know.
No, they're not. They're not. I'll tell you a story. One time in South Africa, I was cutting to 77 and was supposed to fly out and land 2 days before. I was 83 kilos, but the flight got delayed by a couple of hours. I was stuck in the airport. So we were almost a day late, stuck in the airport. And I got to South Africa the night before the weigh-in, and I was at 82. I was 80, about 83 kilos, and I had to be 77 by the morning. Yeah, so it was difficult. But like once again, we had it. We did it. We got it done. Nearly killed me, but we got it done.
And this is the exact thing. Like, I'm just gonna paraphrase the two things you just said. We got it done, but it nearly killed me. Right? Like you're about to, in 24 hours after your weigh-in, step into a cage with another gentleman,
Yeah.
probably equally as skilled as you in a variety of areas, trying to separate you from your consciousness or break enough of your limbs that you'll surrender. And the words we're using is, we got it done, but it killed me. Like, that seems maniacal to me. And if you could just talk me through, I mean, you know, I'm not expecting you to tell me what happens in the weight cut, but tell me who you are in that weight cut. How do you feel in that weight cut? What's going through your head in that weight cut?
You know what I say all the time, the mind over matter. You have to do it. So there's no point crying about all this and crying about that. It has to be done. So do whatever you need to do to get it done. The bats, the running, the sauna, all of that, you know. As a professional, you should know how to do this anyway.
Right.
Just bite down and get it done.
Right. I mean, I for my weight cuts, I was making 57 kilos, walking around at 71. They were rough weight cuts. But look, as you said, these are things that,
You know what's funny actually? My last two fights, I fought a middleweight. Both of them missed weight. The one in Poland and Johnny missed weight. Yeah.
It's rough.
Yeah, I think Johnny was 87 kilos. Yeah, and the guy before him was 84.5.
I mean, speak on that a little bit. I mean, I know that, you know, you've already mentioned a number of times that if you're a professional, you sign a contract to meet a contracted weight, then you have to meet that contracted weight. But
Yeah.
the other side of realizing how ridiculous really these weight cuts are, when somebody misses weight, how does that make you feel?
It depends. Like if I'm fighting a wrestler and he misses weight, I'd be more worried as opposed to fighting a striker. Like Johnny is a striker. That's what I wasn't worried about. If I was fighting a guy who I knew was going to try and take me down, then I'd be like, no, you have to make the weight or whatever. But it all depends on who the person is, to be honest.
That's very, very
Like
interesting.
when I started, I turned professional when I was 18. And I was fighting guys. I didn't know about weight cut back then. Like at the start, I was fighting a middleweight. I was walking around at 86, fighting at 84. I was fighting guys cutting down from 97. You know, I was 97, 98. And they would take me down easy. And I was like, what the hell? This doesn't make sense. Because in class, I was defending takedowns. I was getting takedowns myself. I was doing it really easy. But in the fight, it's like, these guys just seem that bit stronger. And then it was later on, a few years later, one of the guys at the UFC was like, dude, what are you doing at middleweight? I was 21 at this. I was 21 at the time. Like, you shouldn't be a middleweight. You should cut down 7. Then I cut down, and my whole career changed after that. That's when I started fighting 7-7. Like the difference is just when it comes to wrestling and takedown defense and all that shit, the difference you can really feel it. Like.
For sure. For sure. And even somebody who's, you know, both got the skills, but also the physical gifts like yourself, you notice it even more, right? When you're used to being able to use your physicality, and then you come up against a guy who stepped on the scale at the same weight as you 24 hours ago, but now is nowhere near the same weight as you.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the comeback. Obviously, you've sorted your travel documents out now. That's fine. And there's been 2 spates where we sort of lost you from the MMA scene. Once for 2 years, once for 4. Why come back now?
You see, I wasn't away by choice. I was away because I had to. I had to be away. It wasn't my choice to be away. Like I said, I couldn't travel, and there weren't like there's no shows in Ireland. There weren't any shows in Ireland. Like I was signed to EFC. I couldn't travel to EFC. Like all the cage warrior fights were all, outside Ireland. So I was kind of my hands were tied. It wasn't by choice.
And I left the question till the very, very end, but I'm gonna ask it now. Given that the time away wasn't by choice, how does that reflect on you as a man? Do you identify yourself as a fighter? Do you identify yourself separately from fighting? Before I let you answer, like looking at many fighters, and obviously being a media member, I talk to many fighters, watch many fighters, follow many fighters. Bearing in mind you were
Okay.
away from sport for a significant amount of time, not through your own choice. How's that affected your identity as a man, as a fighter?
You see, I'm 31 now. I feel like I could have accomplished so much more in the last 6 years if that didn't happen. But there's nothing I can do about it. I can only start from where I am. So I'm trying to make the most of the time I have left in this sport. That's why I'm doing back-to-back fights. I have another one soon. I can't really talk about it, but I have another one coming up really soon. Like I'm trying to make up for time lost.
And this is exactly my thought, is as a 31-year-old now, as a man who possesses the depths of skill that you do. I mean, even just watching the Johnny Jitsu fight, like, okay, it may not be the most competitive fight that you've been in, but watching you move around the cage, watching you pick your shots, watching you set your shots up with your feints and your footwork and your head movement to defend shots, you can clearly tell that the skills are there. You can tell that the physical prowess is there. You can tell that the athleticism is there. And all of those components are components needed to be a high-level fighter. And yet, through no fault of your own, you've had to miss 6 years of your career. Like, that's a question I don't know how I'd reconcile that as a person. I understand that you say, like, it was out of my hands, I just have to deal with it. But surely, like, there's frustration there, right?
There's many times where there's a lot of times where it almost broke me, but what can you do? You can't afford to be broken. So
And where does that come from? Where does that mentality come from? How did you come to that decision?
apart from the fighting, there's a lot of stuff I've had to deal with in life. So I think it's just experience.
Yeah. I mean, that's a key, right? The key is experience. Because if you don't have that experience, like,
Yeah.
and Will, I hate to take it back to weight cutting, but you take it back to weight cutting, your flight's delayed, it's out of your hands. You get on the flight, you've still got 5 kilos to cut. You turn up at the airport, you turn up at the hotel, and you've got 8 hours to cut 5 kilos. And what was your response? Your response was, we just got to get it done.
It has to be done. It has to be done.
Right. So in terms of in those 6 years that you were away, obviously you're still training, obviously you're still getting better. But how do you view MMA differently now, both from sort of a business perspective, but also from like an athletic endeavor perspective? So
Yeah. You see, MMA before now you have to mix in the whole social media and promotion yourself and all that stuff. Now it's not as straightforward as just going and being a good fighter anymore. Before you go and you bang 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 and your work works for itself. Not so much anymore. There's so much and the fighters have evolved. Everything has just evolved so much. I mean, just the space of how many years?
And how does that reconcile with you? Like, obviously this is the first time that we're having a conversation, but it feels to me as I would brand you as like a fighter's fighter, somebody that would be more than happy to just take a fight, win, and let their fighting do the talking. How do you feel now that it's almost a requirement of you to be active on social media and to put yourself out there?
Um, it actually is helping me grow as a person. To be honest, before I wasn't as much of I wouldn't really post as much stuff, and like all this kind of stuff. It's helping me find myself. So I won't complain about it.
Interesting.
It's fun. It's fun actually.
Can we delve a little bit more into that? What do you mean by finding yourself? What does that look like in actuality?
Like the creativity with the whole media stuff. Like I have an interest in the media to be in it. So having to do that is kind of, I haven't forced into it, and now I have to do it. So it works for me.
That's really interesting because
And then I have the like trying to calling me to make interviews and all that. So yeah, it all works.
Because it's interesting. There are certainly fighters that really despise that side of the sport. They really don't want to be active on social media. They want to be.
I did at the start. I did at the start. The whole introvert extrovert kind of situation, you know.
And that's the question I was going to ask. It's on my list. Is how do you balance both of those sides of your personality? Like when you're fighting in its nature is a very extroverted thing, right? You're in there in front of a crowd competing for glory, essentially, right? Whereas then when you come home, you're Henry, and you have a family and you have your own personal interests. How do you rationalize those two humans?
I don't know. I can't explain that to you. I don't know. You just I don't know how to explain that to you.
Do you become
You,
do you
you,
feel, go on. Do you feel like you become you have to change who you are as your are we good?
not so much. Not so much. Not so much. Like the fighting. Like, it's not just a job. Like I enjoy competition. I enjoy the competition. I don't know. Not so much the fighting. I like the competition.
Okay. And
Like
that's something.
I don't enjoy hurting. I don't enjoy knocking the guy out. Like that's not the part for me. Like MMA in general, for me, it's the most complete form of competition. Like it's you and a guy who's literally trying to end you. There's nothing else that can compete to that, that can match up to that. So to me, that's the ultimate competition, and that's what I like about it. It's not so much the hurting people, whatever.
And this is an interesting part I love asking fighters about, and we'll dive into that a little bit more. Is part of MMA, unfortunately, part of that competition. You just referenced it. You're going in there against somebody, and they're trying to end you. Right? Those were your words. How do you rationalize going in and essentially having to hurt another person to stop them hurting you, as well as competing against them?
We just zone into it, to be honest. I don't know. We just zone into into the. You get tunnel vision once the cage is locked, man. You get tunnel vision. You have a job to do. It's either you do it or it gets done to you. So at that point, the choice is taken is taken from you.
Do you think there's like an inbuilt sort of cerebral human value that comes?
Yeah. Human preservation. It's basically human preservation at that stage.
I find it very interesting that on one hand you are somebody, and I've heard this before from fighters, and I find it extremely interesting that on one hand you can be somebody that doesn't want to cause physical harm to another person. You just want to win, right? You're there for primarily, what you say is the competition aspect. But when you go home, you've picked up your win, you've beaten Johnny Jitsu for the third time, maybe you go on a night out and you celebrate. When you're at home, just with yourself, do you think about the right hand that dropped him, or the punishment that caused the right hand to drop him, and he goes home and he potentially may have taken years off his life, both from that encounter but also from his career? Do you think about that?
It depends on the fighter and how I feel about the fighter. Like Johnny and I, we had a pint after that fight. You know, there's no bad blood between myself and Johnny. There's I think 1 or 2 fights that I've gone in with the intention of actually hurting the guy. And this is a guy called Martin Van Staden. Yeah, because he went a bit too personal, started talking about my daughter and shit like that. And I went and I ripped his knee. I remember I had him on crutches for 11 months. That's the only time I've gone in with the intention of hurting someone. Apart from that, yeah, I go home and I check on I check on the fighters afterwards. If I fight a guy, if I knock him out or whatever, I text him that night and say, "How are you?" And I make sure like he's okay, that kind of stuff.
I think that's really beautiful, really beautiful. And I mean, that probably speaks to you being a father, right? Like there's an element of care that's sort of built into you now, just as a man.
Yeah.
And these are people that, I mean, essentially they help to pay your bills, but also, these are people that you have a very deep connection with based on that time inside the
Yeah,
cage.
yeah, yeah. But it's like when you accept the fight with a guy, you kind of get put on a track where you're both on you're both on the same journey. Just you kind of clash, and one of us has to be the victor, you know. So it's not like I don't like you kind of that kind of stuff.
Can you speak a little bit to the connection that you have with fighters, not necessarily the ones that you go in and you want to cause physical damage to, they've crossed the line, whatever, but fighters where you go in and it's purely competition for you? Can you speak a little bit to the connection that you have with a fighter after that fight's over?
Well, usually, like I always go up to fighters after the fight. Like I go up to him, shake his hand, you know, try to have a conversation, see where his head is at, see how he is. I drop him another text when I get home. You know, just try like it's a friend, like try to make a friendship with this person because like MMA is a very small community, regardless of whether you're an island or whatever. It's a small enough community. Everybody kind of knows each other, so I'd rather have more allies than foes. Like you know, if I fight a guy, I would want to train with him. I might want to train with him sometime. Like I'm going to Poland soonish, and I wouldn't mind training with the guy I fought last. You know, that kind of way.
And is that reflective of who you are as a man?
Yeah, I'd say so.
And I find that interesting too, like that fighting can be this strange dichotomy where on one hand you are you're Henry Fadipe, the man, the father, the son, the brother, the friend, all of these things. And on the other hand, you're Henry Hercules Fadipe, where you're going in trying to separate people from their consciousness or forcing people to tap, and how those personalities sort of intermingle with each other is really, really interesting to me. Really interesting to me. Do you have a goal now? Now that the passport's sorted, now that the documents are sorted, now that everything is ready, do you have a goal in mind?
Yeah. So there's some stuff I can't talk about just yet, but there's something big that just happened. And my goal, I want to get into not so much UFC. I'm not so much focused on the UFC. I want to go and get into stuff like you know the One Championships in China. Yeah, like I'd like to go there. I'd like to go to like all the big promotions and you know make the most of my career while I can.
And you say make the most of your career. If it's in your hands and there's no other, there's nothing else taken away from you outside of your hands, when does your career end? What does that look like?
Probably when I'm like 40. I'd like to, yeah, because I enjoy the competition, you know, and I'm not planning on stopping anytime soon. But at some point, I know I'm gonna have to put the gloves down and focus on family and all that kind of stuff.
And the last question I'll ask is, well, I've got two questions. The first one is about being inside the Irish scene. I mean, you made the point that you debuted at 18. That's 12 years ago now. That's a considerable amount of time as a professional
I
fighter.
debuted as a professional at 18. I debuted at 17.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, 5 amateur fights, all knockouts, and then I turned professional at 18. And yeah.
Being around the Irish scene, and obviously you fought abroad and you fought internationally and all those sorts of things. Being around the Irish scene, how has the Irish scene changed in the last 13 years that you've been both fighting amateur and professional?
There's a lot more fighters. Like you see, the exposure from back then to now. I think since Connor made it famous, like everybody and the grandma knows about MMA now. So everybody's never. I'm on like walking down here, people talk, oh, I do this, I do that. And now it's everywhere. So like, there's a lot more. There's a lot more people at it. There's gyms popping up everywhere now. There's SBG popping up like freaking little, you know. Yeah. In terms of the like fighting or the fighters themselves, this is all the same. They're all the same, to be honest.
Do you think
It's just
it's
there's a lot more of it now.
do you think that that's negatively impacted the scene or positively impacted the scene? Or how do you feel about that as a person?
Well, you see, the purse hasn't changed. There's a lot more fighters, there's a lot more promotions and all that. Well, not a lot more promotions because COVID, but like there's a lot more fighters, a lot more gyms, there's a lot more exposure. But the things that important that are most important is they haven't changed.
Hmm. That's the problem, right?
Yeah. You see the likes of boxing, like you're boxing, you turn professional, you start making big cash. Like training for an MMA fight and training for a boxing fight is very different. You know, we do almost twice. We do a lot more training than they do. We have to go through a lot more shit and get paid a quarter of what the boxers do. You know, so in that sense, nothing's changed. Hopefully, it changes soon enough, but we take it step by step.
We do what has to be done, right? You just got to get it done.
Exactly. Bite down and do what has to be done.
So the final question I'll ask on, and speak as affluently or not as you want. Do you fear head trauma? Obviously, there's been lots and lots of tragic counts and lots of research recently done, both in the NFL, in rugby, in football, but obviously in MMA and boxing as well, where head trauma is a very dubious topic. Is that something as a fighter, especially as a heavier fighter, where the blows that are being taken come with a lot more muscle mass than if you're fighting at 125? Is head trauma something that you fear?
Not so much. Try not to get hit in the head. You, you're going to a cage with a guy who's trying to knock you in the head. You train not to get knocked in the head. It's simple. Like, I'll show you something. Okay, listen to this. Listen to this. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's from an elbow from when I was 19. The guy, John Michael Shields. He took me down, got on top. I was trying to get away, and he caught me with an elbow. And I've had that click in my jaw since I was 19. But apart from that, no, it's all good. The blows to the head now.
Fair enough. Well, look, I understand there've been some connection issues today, and I apologize for that. I'm going to do my best to get this one all wrapped up. I think the Irish MMA scene is in a better place for having you in it. I think that the world MMA scene is a better place for having you in it. You're somebody that it's a real shame that we lost 6 years of your career, but obviously you say there are some exciting things coming around the corner, and we're certainly going to be excited for those when they do come round. If for whatever reason people don't know where to find you, please plug whatever you want, sponsors, social medias, gyms, whatever you want.
Yeah, if you want to find me in Phantom on Moore Street. Big shout out to my sponsors, CC Concrete from Cork, Rose. If you want to find me, I'm on Instagram, Hercules Fadipe. Yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, man.